April 14th, 1865. John Wilkes Booth assassinates Abraham Lincoln. Ford's theater staff give him one warning, and then he's ejected without a refund. Welcome to The Revisionists. I'm Brian Flynn.
Oh, that one was good.
I'm Zach Powers.
And joining us is friend of the show, Zach Welch.
Hey, everybody. Sorry to talk out of line there. That was pretty funny.
No, that works for me. I appreciate it.
From the audience's perspective, that joke happened, and then our full theme song, and then your appreciation of it. Much delayed.
What the audience doesn't hear is the 16 full seconds of laughter in between me making that joke and the podcast starting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always play the theme song live in studio.
I got the band over here. I got Kevin Eubanks.
Oh, yeah.
The Roots.
The Roots, right.
Not their normal instruments. It's like a weird little clicking. I don't know what the fuck that is.
It's a triangle and some chimes, I think.
It's whatever I downloaded off of Creative Commons and then sped up in Audacity.
And it turns out it was by Kevin Eubanks and the Roots in a rare collab.
Also, damn it, who's David Letterman's dude? Or was David Letterman's
Paul Schaefer.
Paul Schaefer.
Paul Schaefer.
I almost said Paul Shear, but I'm like, I know it's something like that.
Paul Schaefer does a dope remix of that intro music you guys have, actually. So
Paul Schaefer, a dope remix.
Dope remix.
Are two phrases I never anticipated.
Yeah,
going
old
together.
dirty Schaefer.
Shave Quan.
Young Shafe.
And of course, Method Shafe and Red Shafe.
Right, of course.
Oh,
Red Chafe is a bad rap
Red
name.
Chafe. Yeah, that's a terrible one. Listeners, before we get into the episode proper, I did want to say I noticed something after our Roger Casement episode 2 episodes ago, and that was a sudden spike in listeners from the Republic of Ireland. So I would like to say my comments about Irish people were, of course,
they're not still. They're done. They tried. They listened to that one.
Well, and of course, they're now in a Jameson fog, probably somewhere.
Right, yeah. They didn't even get this. They aren't even listening to you right now.
My comments, of course, meant to disparage only Irish Americans, not people from Ireland itself.
Fucking Irish Americans specifically.
Which I am one, so,
Yeah.
you know.
We're self-loathing only.
As most
I
alcoholics
hate
are.
German Americans. I hate Irish Americans. I hate Russian Americans.
Really, I just hate Brian Americans.
I hate Colorado natives. If you got one of those fucking native bumper stickers, I'm coming for you.
Me and Brian slowly put down our Colorado native beers.
Oh, no. I just got this Colorado native chest rocker tattoo. It has a picture of John Hickenlooper and Ralph Carr making out.
Oh, that sounds great.
That is.
Wait,
that's a joke for 6 people. But if you're new to the show, especially from the Emerald Isle, top of the morning to you.
No, just they've been through enough at our hands.
I really feel like you should be like, drive safe.
Yeah. Have a potato for us, you know?
Yeah.
First the troubles, and now this podcast. When will the
today, actually, the anniversary of the Good Friday Peace Accords. So don't blow anything up, Ireland. Jesus Christ. I'm editing all of this out. If you're new to the show, what we do is each episode we pick a different ethnic group and disparage it. We take a topic from history, and one person presents the official version of events, and another person comes up with a bonkers, batshit alternate history.
And this week we've chosen Germans, a very safe group to disparage.
Because most of the time they're like, yeah, we had that.
I mean, they brought it on themselves.
They had that coming.
Right?
Yeah. There we go. I had to get into it. I had to find my in for that character. That character, of course, Baron von Sauerkraut.
Right. I wish you would do that to Mike's more.
Mm-hmm. More characters.
More character work is what Denver comedy needs.
Yeah. And Brian has so many wild and crazy characters rolling around inside of him. A regular
Sybil.
Boris Karloff.
Oh, okay.
Andy Daly, what have you?
You should see his
type.
Cat Williams.
I'm legally prohibited from doing the Cat
speak.
Williams.
That'll be next week,
Yeah, I
listeners.
feel.
Yeah, that's for the Patreon subscribers.
Yeah, for our episode about Cat Williams. Where he was really funny when I was in high school, and then when I got older, I was like, I don't know about some of this stuff.
That can be said about a lot of comedians I liked in high school, to be fair.
Hey,
Dane Cook.
I'll say it. I don't think Bill Hicks has aged well for me.
Oh, no, Bill Hicks has aged terribly.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah.
Bill Hicks. Also, speaking of terrible stand-up comedians, today is the special day that T.J. Miller got arrested for calling it a bomb threat.
God, leave it to a straight guy to hear a woman say, "I hope you bomb," and just hear like, "I have a bomb." Like,
Yeah. One less Colorado native for me to worry about now that T.J. Miller is off the map.
He's not dead. I mean, knock on wood.
Well, his career is
he's
functionally
dead to
there.
us. He's
so.
dead to us.
Which you would have known if you had seen his last 2 years of stand-up. Any hoozle. Last time on the podcast, we talked about Woodrow, the Wood, Wilson, and...
Oh, Morning Woodrow Wilson.
Yeah, Morning Woodrow Wilson would be a great, like, erotic novel about Woodrow Wilson's funeral.
Oh, okay. I was thinking like maybe Woodrow Wilson, like that was a nickname he gave himself, but he didn't know that it had another meaning.
Yeah,
he
no,
was
he's
just
an
like,
early
I
bird.
always wake up at the crack of dawn.
Yeah, and he's got a big Woody's t-shirt on, and he doesn't see from, like, fucking Aeropostale or American Eagle. I don't know.
Revisionism is fun.
Yeah, there we go.
Speaking of-
The alternate history, Greg Hutt's alternate history, won out that episode. So thank you to Greg for that. But this,
I believe in that version, Woodrow Wilson was the basis for Biff Tannen, and I think he ran a house of ill repute.
yes,
At,
as it were.
yeah. At Princeton or wherever he went to college.
Yeah. I was trying to find I couldn't find a classier euphemism for that, and then I got scared. But this week we are discussing Paul Von Hindenburg, and Zach Powers. You have the actual history,
I do.
and Zach Welch, you have the alternate.
I sure do.
All right. Hey there, this is Brian reminding you that The Revisionist is supported by listeners just like you. You can make a pledge and get rewards like shirts and even the right to vote over at patreon.com/therevisionists. Zach Powers, why don't you take us away?
Alrighty. I'll start by saying,
Sorry.
as with all Germans that we discuss on this podcast and will discuss, and who are famous from history, Paul von Hindenburg is easily identifiable by his mustache. So keep an eye out for Paul von Hindenburg's mustache. There will be a mustache quiz at the end. Hitler is obviously a gimme, but you're going to have to study the
One
other
of the most
ones.
rideable historical mustaches, if I do say so myself.
Sure. They put care into their mustaches. I have to give them that.
Would you describe it as a push broom? Oh no, that is. I had forgotten.
No, yeah.
That is classic handlebar a
It's
little
Steal
bit.
Your Mama mustache.
Yeah, that's your new stepdad mustache.
yeah.
That's a step stash.
Yeah. Well, like 1890s,
mustache.
your new stepdad.
You're not my real mustache. That's a mustache you don't
All
see
right.
in the stands at your Little League game.
All right, this motherfucker was born in 1847. And I'm going to say this about old Paul von Hindenburg. This is a fella who looks a lot better in his story because of the people that surround him. Like, it's like, sort of like how nowadays you'll hear a lot of people being like, oh, you know what? McCain or Bush or Romney, they weren't too bad, but it's like, well, they were still pretty bad. It's just that now they're so much worse.
Yeah.
That you kind of reevaluated them a little bit. That's kind of the Hindenburg's whole thing in this situation, I would say. Yeah. All right. So this guy was born to Robert von Beneckendorf und von Hindenburg, and was distantly related to, actually directly descended from Martin Luther. He of
I thought you were gonna say Martin Luther King.
How many?
And I know that it doesn't even match up.
No, he means like eviction notice, Martin Luther, not like.
Yeah. Was it? How many of those 99 proclamations?
95.
But
a bitch
95.
Ain't one.
I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that's actually when Jay-Z released 99 Problems. He was actually doing just like a reboot of the Martin Luther's theses.
Right.
That's why one of his problems was selling indulgences.
So anyway, the family was known popularly as like the Hindenburgs by people they didn't know. That was like their official title. But among their friends, they were just the Beneckendorfs. So that was their casual name.
Germans.
Anyway, this guy, he went to military school, he marries a woman who's a philanthropist. She eventually dies in 1921, has a few kids with her, participates in the Franco-Prussian War and Austro-Prussian War. He gets all the way up to a colonel general, and after 46 years in the German army, he retires in 1911 at the ripe old age of 66. And that's the story of, oh, wait, hold on. There's a little more here. After being retired for 3 years.
I'm glad we all came to play today.
This way, so he's been alive 66 years. Everything interesting that happens to this asshole happens in the last 20 years of his life.
That is true. Totally.
It's golden years, baby.
Okay, so at 66 in 67 in 1914, he is pulled back into the army. He had left to make room for younger men, but that he would not do. So the German 8th is being taken down a peg in their engagement on the Eastern Front of World War I against Russia, and there is a vote among the War Council to very suddenly bring him back. The way it was written, it seemed like he did not have much of a say. They were just like, listen, dude, you know how to do military shit, and we're losing, so just come back. So he takes over with a fella named Erich Ludendorff for the German 8th Army fighting the Russians. And very quickly, they are involved in what's called the Battle of Tannenberg.
the Battle
of Biff Tannenberg.
Yeah, after Biff Tannen came in, all the cities were renamed after him. So Tannenberg.
Second consecutive episode discussing Biff Tannen at
Well, that's how time works.
Biff Tannen appears at all points in time because, of course, he has a DeLorean. But
the last one was Woodrow Wilson.
This
makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a little Where's Waldo, but it's fine. It's a little more Carmen Sandiego, really.
And of course, Nelson Rockefeller made all of his money betting on sports gambling.
Right, yes.
Back to the Future, too.
As we know. It's canon.
Well, the Battle of Tannenberg, a battle between Germans and Russians, ends up being, I think, the biggest victory of the entire war for any one side. So 80,000 Russians are killed, 90,000 are taken prisoner, and only 14,000 Germans are captured, killed, or wounded. And so it's a massive victory for the German army after they'd been suffering a series of defeats. This guy, Hindenburg, is immediately a national hero in Germany. And he sees a series of subsequent successes against the Russian infantry on the Eastern Front.
And it should be said, Russian infantry, not very well supplied or treated.
No, so there's way more.
Yeah,
there's over 3 times as many Russians as Germans fighting, but they're often so poorly equipped that some of them just straight up have spears.
It's all on Facebook the whole time. Oh, I'm sorry. I said that. I feel bad for that one. Not proud of that one.
Just checking MySpace.
So he becomes a hero of Germany. Things start going, after there's a series of mixed successes after that against the Russians, but eventually Russian morale starts to weaken and they start to deter. And, obviously eventually the Russian Revolution happens and Russia exits the war on account of that. But during his time in control of the 8th German Army, he starts having clashes with this, basically the commander of the German army, this guy Falkenhayn or something like that.
Close enough.
Yeah. Falkenhayn tries to split up Hindenburg and Ludendorff. Ludendorff kind of becomes like his right-hand dude. He makes every decision with Ludendorff. They're buds for the entirety of World War I, top to bottom. They threaten to resign if Falkenhayn splits them up, and eventually the Kaiser steps in and is like, okay, don't do that. And Falkenhayn himself is forced to resign after his massive failure at Verdun, at which point Hindenburg takes charge of the entire eastern front of the war instead of just the German 8th. Pretty soon the Russians are abandoning Warsaw. They're leaving Poland and other areas. And he holds the Eastern Front until such a time that the Russians move to sign a treaty and end their part in World War I. Let me figure out where I am here. But on the Western Front, at the same time, things were not going nearly as well against France and Britain. And Hindenburg and Ludendorff suggest unrestricted submarine warfare in order to buy them time, like distract the naval aspects of the French and British so that they could buy time to restock their guys in the West and maybe rebuild their army with excess troops from the East. There's still like some blowback to this from other commanders, including I think the Kaiser is a little reticent to actually do that. Oh, unrestricted submarine warfare means just open fire on whatever. No more warnings, no more, like you just go into town on anything you see.
Yeah, it's Grand Theft Auto rules, basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, can we do that?
Eventually,
great again.
So they're getting blowback on this from the German Chancellor at the time, Berthmann Hollweg, who also has some disagreements with them on how to handle the Russian treaty. But eventually Hindenburg proves himself, and he becomes the leader of the entire German army, not just the Eastern Front. And even so, while he manages to hold off a lot of French offensives and kind of hold the line for a while, even while they're forced to become more defensive and push forward a little less, things start to crumble as the Brits and Americans regroup, and it's clear that things are not particularly going well. In terms of the war.
Right. Or at home, because also Britain
point,
had blockaded German ports, so it was hard to get, food.
Right. And by this point, America had fully entered the war and resupplied,
fully entered.
Done their part to, yeah.
All 10 American inches
and
in the war.
Yeah. So despite a series, he had... So in spite of holding off against the French and even making some progress against the British initially, eventually it became clear this was just not going to work out. Ludendorff at that point had a complete breakdown. He was reported to often be seen crying and yelling stuff like, "It's impossible, we can't do it."
Is that unusual to do? Is that a thing?
Is that... Because I do that.
I do that.
Like...
I did that before I came in here, and I'm going to do it again as soon as I get back in my car.
I do it when I wake up.
This podcast...
That's how I wake up. Just, it's impossible!
Yeah, because constantly someone is telling you that they are, in fact, your father.
Well, we use the word daddy, but...
What a different version of Empire Strikes Back that would be.
Classic line, Luke, I am your daddy. And all that leather he wears. There's got it. That's somebody has roleplayed that before, for sure.
Guaranteed.
Oh, yeah.
Would Ewoks be considered bears, though?
Ewoks are small bears, yeah.
Okay.
But they're like petite bears.
Guess.
I just need to know for a thing.
There is such a thing as like
let's keep it
smaller gentleman or like a shorter guy that's got a beard and
like a
furry hair.
Ewok.
Yeah, but
right, a regular bear, like a bigger, burlier guy would be like a Wookiee, I imagine.
Ooh, yeah, I guess that's canon.
We all know tired Star Wars sexual fetish is slave Leia. That's tired. That's misogynistic. Right. Wired? Fucking leather daddy Vader.
Still seems pretty 80s to me, but okay.
All right. Girth Vader, yeah. Nope. Mm-hmm. Editing that out.
Okay. Anyways, that's what Lucas gets when he puts Invader right in the name of his villain. Anyway, Ludendorff breaks down, and eventually Ludendorff is forced to resign, but Hindenburg is kept. Ludendorff kind of resents Hindenburg for that, even though it didn't seem to be totally his fault. Hindenburg did everything he could. And eventually, while they're settling up for the treaty to end the First World War, Wilson wants to deal with not a monarchy, with proper democracy. There's pressure from outside, and people within Germany no longer believe in the Kaiser. And as a result of those two things, the Kaiser... the Kaiser is outed. And a fellow named Frederick Ebert, or Ebert, or probably Ebert because it's German, takes over as the president of Germany. Treaty of Versailles goes down, and Hindenburg retires to write his memoirs and is still widely admired. And that's the end of his... Oh, wait a minute. There is a little bit more here.
Okay, I see the game.
So,
I see the game now.
As Germany enters a downward spiral after the Treaty of Versailles, there comes a point where Hindenburg is actually subpoenaed. They're looking for someone to blame the First World War on, and they bring him in for questioning.
Forgot about that.
And he makes a mockery of the trial. Basically, he reads an angry speech about how the German army was stabbed in the back, and he doesn't answer any of their questions, and he just walks the fuck out. And he's like, "The people still love me. You're not gonna hold me in contempt of court." And he's right. He gets away with it. It's fine. And he's like, "You know what? I'm sick of this shit. I'm gonna run in the 1920 election." But then Ebert is like, "Actually, we're not holding elections till 1925 because I can just do that." And so he's like, "Okay, maybe I'll just retire." So he retires and settles off. Oh, wait, there is a little bit more here, actually. The German, in the meantime, between 1920 and 1925, the German economy continues to go south, and Ludendorff starts to follow a fresh new political ideology called Nazism, of which he is a fan, and participates with a young fella named Hitler in the beer hall putsch of, I don't know what year that was. I didn't write it down.
25?
But yeah, that sounds right. It must be 24, 25, somewhere in that range. So the center right the non-Nazi right of Germany is like, listen, Hindenburg, if we're going to beat this Hitler dude, you got to run. And Hindenburg is not a fan of Hitler. So he's like, fuck it, fine. Even though I'm old as fuck, I will run. I'm in my 70s, but I'll run for president of Germany. In 1925, before the election can occur, Ebert dies, and a new election happens pretty quickly. In this election, he actually beats Ludendorff and the Nazi Party and becomes the president of Germany. But the problem is that the Germans still win a plurality. The Nazis, I mean, still win a plurality, and they kind of have a pretty large presence in the Reichstag. So he pushes a lot of austerity measures while he's in charge. He refuses publicly. He makes a speech refusing to accept German responsibility for World War I. And Wikipedia said, in response, the Allies, quote, did not congratulate him on his 80th birthday.
Oh, goddamn pettiness. I love it so much.
Yeah, he's no longer speaking to lifelong pal Ludendorff at this point. Unemployment starts skyrocketing. Constitutional system weakens.
I'm glad you led to not speaking to his buddy anymore.
Yeah. Reichstag's power is decreased and the chancellor's is increased. The chancellor serves just under the president in order to speed certain decisions. And Hindenburg remains completely distrustful of the Nazis and personally dislikes Adolf Hitler when he finally meets him.
It's a good call.
Yeah. He runs again. He may be in the beginning stages of dementia, but he does run again in order to... so here's what the situation is. He's running because he's the best bet to defeat Adolf Hitler.
Okay, no, that's... I take back what I said.
Seems like a historical constant.
He barely wins the election. He's losing the support of the right wing that put him in power last time and is actually getting votes from people who just don't want Hitler to win, who are more left-leaning. And at this point, he has to make a deal with Hitler, who is primed to become chancellor because the Nazis control the Reichstag. Hitler wants the chancellorship. He wants the vice chancellorship. He wants half of the cabinet positions. And ultimately, what happens is Hitler does become chancellor. A friend of Hindenburg named Pepin, who is not a Nazi, becomes vice chancellor. And the Nazis get 3 of the 10 cabinet positions. Göring is like Secretary of the Interior or something like that.
Sorry, to me it sounded like you said Göring, yeah.
Göring. Okay, Göring. However you want. I'm not going to respect this motherfucker with a proper pronunciation. So Hitler does get a little more power, which he uses to move away from austerity to pumping money into stuff like the Autobahn and other like state production stuff, which is not necessarily a terrible idea on its own, but a lot of it is like military spending and such.
Right.
But he also pushes for proposals to remove Jewish government employees. Hindenburg fights him on that. He wants Jews who served in the military, veterans, to retain their jobs, and Hitler agrees. And Hindenburg begins to have more conflicts with him as Nazi stormtroopers become more thuggish and rougher in pushing their political agenda. After the Night of the Long Knives, he becomes pretty angry with Hitler over that one. Hitler sends him an apology letter in regards to it, but
What?
He does. That's what it doesn't matter because at this point, Hindenburg is dying of cancer, and shortly thereafter, he passes away. He removing Hitler's last obstacle. Hitler succeeds him, names himself Führer. It's worth noting that lifelong friend Ludendorff, that was in 1934 that Hindenburg died. Ludendorff is still alive, still a Nazi, In fact, Ludendorff worships, he doesn't just dislike Jews. He thinks Catholicism is bad, and he worships Odin.
Okay, well, that's...
I mean, me too.
And, fun fact, Erich Ludendorff is the basis for the Danny Huston villain in the recent Wonder Woman movie, although they're very dissimilar, except for having the same name and both being German generals in World War I. Very dissimilar. And both being kind of evil douchebags.
Yeah.
So a lot of people loved Hindenburg's military service, thought he was faithful and dogged, but his presidency was... Sometimes mistakes were made based on image or stupid concessions to necessity or to the Nazis. But it's worth noting that his real longest legacy is that, yes, that blimp was named after him. They actually, this is a thing I learned. They wanted, some people in the German government at the time wanted to name the blimp after Hitler, but ultimately they named it after Hindenburg instead. And it would be a very different tragedy if the Hitler crashed and burned. But
oh, God damn it.
There you have it. That is the true story of Paul von Hindenburg, the leader of the German army during World War I and the president of Germany in the lead up to the Nazi movement. One of the things we've had a lot of in the past few episodes is that these people's lives extend beyond World War I, and we see what happens leading into World War II, even though we're not quite there yet in our program. But yeah, that's just something that's going to happen.
Spoiler alert, World War II happens.
I don't know if you haven't been following the show so far.
I mean, I don't know how much we'll discuss it because of all the horror.
They've been foreshadowing it, though. I mean, I think we all knew this was coming.
Yeah.
We did talk about, like, the Congo, like the horrors in the Congo in the early 20th century.
I mean, I do think just that's a thing fewer people know about also, but...
That's true.
But so
that's
is
fair.
Fucking Paul Von Hindenburg, you guys.
Yeah. Anyway, Zach, thank you.
Yeah, that was very thorough.
Every week, Denver's own Real Nerds podcast sees a new movie and we podcast our experience to the world.
I think sometimes we're funny.
Yeah, sometimes when I'm talking, not when you're talking, not when you're talking.
Oh,
You know, it might help if you told them that we're on iTunes or on Stitcher so they could find a place where they can actually listen to us.
Oh, okay, Brad. We're also on Twitter at Real Nerds, and we have an Instagram account. Boom. Commercial, Brad. Cut, paste, upload. We like to have fun.
Sure. I like fun.
James, you're very bad at improv. RealNerdsPodcast.com.
Zach, whenever you're ready.
Yes, of course. So I think that there's a few things that people just sort of neglect to include in the history of Paul von Hindenburg. One thing that definitely did happen, and Zach fact-checked my dates here, but was it in 1914, 1915, they erected that really tall wooden statue of him in Berlin, and they sold nails to people to raise money for the war effort to pound into it?
That's correct. Yeah, that was after the victory at the Battle of Tannenberg. They created this statue for him and sold nails to raise money. Yep. And they said like something like 300,000 nails were sold, and they raised a lot of money for the war effort.
Yeah, that's what I understand as well. So, when he returned home in May of 1919, Paul von Hindenburg actually enjoyed a massive amount of celebrity. Not only was there that giant wood statue that was erected, but he was on cups and tobacco boxes. Just all the merch in Germany had this guy's mug on it. In fact, the best...
It was Hindenburg
That's
fever.
right. In fact, the best-selling toy of Germany in the Christmas of 1919 was a my-size version of that statue. And it was sold to children. No, go on.
I think it tells you a lot about earliest 20th century Germany, that the sexiest man in Germany was a late 60s mustachioed general.
Well,
fresh off the war.
So much so that they actually sold those statues as toys, and they included a hammer and 69 nails to subliminally set the standard of beauty for all German men going forward.
Right.
Okay, so PVH, as they called him, HPV already having been taken and dropped on the Prussians, he was just in all the tabloids. He went to all the special events, all the award shows, and he regularly left his house to find just a smattering of fans gathered in front of his home, hoping for a glimpse of him. They traveled far and wide, but none of it was enough. 1924, PHV had met a new woman, a young Chanteuse in Berlin. Her name was Selina Quartzenthofen, and she had stolen PVH's heart and totally captivated his mind. She was talented and ambitious, and she inspired him to dream like he was a young man once again. Now, knowing that one's 15 minutes are fleeting, even on an analog clock, PVH decided to parlay his rise to stardom into yet more stardom. So desperate to showcase his earthy baritone voice, he and Selena both auditioned for German Idol, which became the most popular radio show of 1920.
I think it was mandatory, actually, at the time.
They were able to keep their affair a secret, even as they moved into the final rounds of the show, and PVH's mistress ultimately won the contest in March of 1920. They enjoyed a whirlwind 2 months of being in love and on tour as finalists of the show, until May 15th, 1920, which was the day Selena was shot by German Idol superfan Yolanda Sauerkraut. And the remainder...
I was wondering how you were going to work that.
Oh, yeah. So the remainder of the tour, of course...
From Justin to Kelly to Selena.
Right. Yeah, there was a very poorly acted short film about it later. But the rest of that tour...
that's up for dispute. But anyway.
The rest of that tour was canceled, of course, in Selena's memory. After that, our friend PVH was heartbroken and distraught, and he mostly had managed to keep the affair a secret. He needed to maintain that secret for the sake of both his marriage and his public image. Having few confidants outside his own family, PVH turned to drinking and his social life at this time. He was frequently photographed at parties and nightlife hotspots with his friends Pavel Hefeweizen and Nicholas Reichstag. And during this time, PVH was seen driving with his grandchild on his lap, dangling a grandchild off of a balcony, and losing the right to see his grandchildren ever again. Perhaps the most infamous moment of this period, PVH was pictured with a shaved mustache attacking a Jeep with an umbrella. And
Okay, so we're just running the gamut across them now. Okay.
After being arrested for doing cocaine in a brothel on Halloween of 1920, wearing little to no costume, he went to rehab, where he remained until January of 1921. When he left rehab, he had a few quiet months caring for his ailing wife until she died in May of 21. He became relevant to the public once more by doing talk shows and participating in Dancing with the Stars, a wildly popular, if not exceedingly stupid concept program, in which he took second place.
Just for reference, currently this man is aged 75
Yes.
years.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, he's very limber for 75. You'd be surprised.
The Germans are not very virile. He is the exception that...
Yeah, also, German's kind of a poor field of dancers in the first place. So,
I think you'll find that most
rigid
retirement... If you go to most retirement homes in this or any country, but particularly in Germany, the night that they really allow them to cut loose once a year is called Von Hindenburg night, where the old folks really cut a rug and have a lot of sex and cocaine.
And of course, there's Sadie Von Hindenburg night, when the ladies demand the dudes dance with them.
Okay, so he did the talk shows. He took second place in Dancing with the Stars, and so to piggyback on that success, he released a new album in September, as well as a collection of holiday standards at the end of that year. It was at a Christmas party that he met the woman who would become his second wife, Nicole Brownstein, a Jewish woman. Brownstein,
I wasn't expecting that. Okay.
a Jewish woman, had stolen PVH's heart. They were married by June, and she was found dead in September. In fact, to this day, one of the most iconic moments in German history is a photo of the German police force chasing him through the city in a white Audi as they attempt to arrest him for the murder. That trial lasted well into the spring of 1923, but in the end, it was a pair of lederhosen stained with Brownstein's blood that did not fit Paul von Hindenburg that ended up getting him off. Hoping for the best throughout the trial, PVH was actually able to work out a reality show deal during the course of the trial, and he spent the summer of 1924 filming The Wundermoon Shore, and in the autumn of that year, he was the host and judge of The Lehrling, which is The Apprentice, and it's where the contestants perform military-style group challenges for a shot at a cash prize and a fake military ranking. So he was at the very height of name recognition at the beginning of 1925, and at that time he was called upon to run for president. He was skittish at first, but the lusty, alluring greed of fame and the first stages of dementia finally changed his mind. His election was successful, despite him trying to physically fight a man he saw attempting to pawn a my-size nail statue. They, of course, had fallen out of popularity, but in a moment of senility, PVH insisted it was his own memorabilia. PVH was named president of Germany in May, and that, as they say, is why we have Hitler.
I think also now we can cross-list this as a true crime podcast, and I think that'll really just boost us through the roof.
Those things,
Zach, thank you.
fucking sell like hotcakes.
Sell like hotcakes.
Yeah.
We're selling this? That's awesome. Zach, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Before we get to the judgment phase, listeners, I want to remind you that you can get a hold of us via our website, revisionistpodcast.com, or our social media. There we go. Jesus. I turned 30 and forgot everything.
Send us a telegram.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And we ask...
The revisionists at yahoo.com.
Yeah. We're on Yahooligans. We're on... we got a Hotmail.
Go get it, Lycos.
Look for us on Ask Jeeves. We also ask that you, on your podcast service of choice, write a review of the show, which is super helpful in exposing us to new listeners. Irish, welcome.
I mean, are you sure about that?
Finally, after 60 episodes, we've changed the policy.
Well, the thing is, they kept coming in such overwhelming numbers and illegally registering to vote and secured positions of power. So,
Jesus.
That's how we did it here. That was a little B-52s. Zach Welch, you host two great shows at the Denver Bike Cafe.
Yeah, we do an open mic every Sunday at 8, and then we do a showcase second Wednesdays at 8:30, and it would be great if y'all came to those.
Hell yeah.
I'm also on the Longmont Laugh Fest at the end of the month. I'll be at Sky Brewing on the 27th at 7, so if you're in Northern Colorado, come to that. Or you can catch me headlining our bar Saturday of that week, the 29th, I believe.
Awesome. And our bar's in Fort Collins.
Our bar is in Fort Collins, yes. 28th. So it's the 26th and the 28th. I lied. I'm sorry. Longmont Laugh's the 26th. Our bar's the 28th. Please come.
And then Zach Powers, Stage of Fools, is your podcast with Shannon Camp.
It is my podcast with Shannon Camp. You can listen to the remaining probably 6 or 7 episodes before that show probably ends forever. Probably for the best. It's a mercy killing at this point.
We're, of course, talking about Ease the Royals, not the podcast, which is...
I mean, 6 of 1. Regardless, we have fun over there, so if you want to listen to us ramble on about the stupidest fucking show on television. In this past episode, the King of England dissolved Parliament just by saying, hey, Parliament's dissolved, and no one really minded that much.
Oh, Jesus.
Is there like a
go.
subreddit fandom for that, like there is almost every other show on TV?
You know, I think it's more like there's Tumblr fans who
sense.
like the central romantic pairing, which is the part that me and Shannon hate the most about the show.
Oh, God damn it. As for me, I will be on also the aforementioned Longmont Laugh Fest. Actually, also on April 26th. At Long Tucky Spirits at 9 p.m. There's a whole bunch of shows going on then. But yeah, so you actually probably would be able to check out both Zach and myself, and a whole bunch of other people. I didn't mean for that to sound as dismissive.
Other people? What are those?
I'm a solipsist. Now is, of course, the time for judgment, and both Zachs performed admirably. Zach,
Especially given a great deal of the actual history of this fella is like him talking about the minutia of military decisions during World War I, which does not translate great. I didn't even mention he's also often considered responsible for the victory at Flanders Field.
Great.
that.
No, this one was dense as fuck. Thank you guys for letting me choose.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Zach very thoroughly researched and well put together. Zach Welch, but goddamn it, anytime someone puts in a German language pun, I'm also just a sucker for celebrity drama illusions. So I'm going to give it to the alternate for my vote.
Thank
Brian-
you.
Brian Flynn has a closet that's just every Us Weekly printed in the 90s.
Yeah, that's what my closet used to look like too.
But listeners, voting is now open to you. So cast your vote. But for everyone here at the Revisionists, I'm Brian Flynn.
I'm Zach Powers.
Have a good time.